But I mean, the rest of the Old Testament story that we're going to read, and then Jesus, it's an outworking of these covenants. We're there.
Yeah, we
this is we've kind of hit the peak then, because this is the last of the big covenants
in the Old Testament.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, let's kind of hit over that. So we're talking again. We're not reading the Bible cover to cover.
Right.
We're reading about a story, a narrative, and so this is
because it's first and foremost a story.
Because first and foremost, a story.
It really is.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know, because she started laughing. Okay. I thought that was funny.
It is, though.
It's a funny story.
I didn't grow up knowing that. I grew up thinking you open it and you read a verse and God's going to teach you something. And so understanding that this is first and foremost a story was just like life-changing, mind-bending for reading Scripture. So it's really important, and that's our hope for this year, is like, this is a story, and there's lots of things in it, but it's first and foremost God's story for us.
And so we find ourselves at this point kind of at one of the early peaks. Maybe that's not fair to call it an early peak, but I mean, 2 Samuel, like you said, we've just concluded reading the 5th covenant,
yeah.
Which is the last kind of great covenant we read in the Old Testament.
The last of the old covenants.
Yeah, so let's maybe go back and hit some of those.
So again, we chose selections because we're trying to help us all see this year the story, like we're saying. So that's why we started in the beginning. And theologians would point to creation and the creation mandate as the first covenant God made with humanity to be fruitful and multiply, subdue creation, and image me in all of it and help it all flourish and all that. So you have with Adam, and then you see it all go downhill quickly. God makes a new covenant with Noah, and we talked about that after the flood. And then the next one we see is Genesis 12, Abraham. So you have 3 really quick in the book of Genesis. And the covenant...
But it's the same thing. It's like he makes his covenant, and then it kind of goes downhill quickly.
We see
Makes
that.
a covenant, and it kind of goes downhill.
But we see his faithfulness in each
quickly.
covenant. So with Noah, his covenant is, I will never do this again. I will never wipe out all of humanity despite their rebellion and sin. And he doesn't.
Yeah. So then you have Abraham in Genesis 12. The story picks up with God saying, I will make you a nation of people who will experience my presence, my blessing, because I want you to be a blessing to all people. And he says this to a guy with no children.
Yeah.
And that story plays out. And then they do become a great nation, but they're enslaved in Egypt. They're rescued out of that because of God's mighty hand and the leadership of Moses. They go to Mount Sinai, and then you get the covenant of the law. And that is really how the New Testament refers back to those days. Like the Pharisees are often talking about the law. And that's part of God's covenant. This is the way of life for you. And if you live in this way, that's my design, then you will be blessed and be a blessing to all others. And we've seen how that played out. And now we get to David, finally to a king. And back in 2 Samuel 7, we get his covenant from the Lord that his line would reign forever. There would always be someone from David's line on the throne. Now, that doesn't mean there's always going to be a throne, always a human sitting on it. Yeah. But it is this promise that we see in Jesus, we talked about last week in Luke chapter 1, where the angel tells Mary that your son will sit on David's throne. So that's how we get to Jesus. But those are the 5 covenants that we cover in the story. And so we've hit this peak in David's kingship. Last week we talked about his weakness because of his sin, his vulnerability, and he's on the run from his son.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an can't talk. Exaggeration. Okay, here we go. Exaggeration to say that everything in the Bible is connected to one of these covenants. It's connected to, it's a reference to, it's an outworking of what God's promises to humanity, to his people are. Mm-hmm. So, we're rehashing it, but it's really important to understand the story and understand how to read the rest of the story, the rest of Scripture, understanding who Jesus is, who he's claiming to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why when you read the Gospels and the interchange between Jesus and the Pharisees, they're saying like, we're Abraham's children, or son of David, or, hold up the law and keep the Sabbath. Like, all of that is connected to what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and
what we've been
Paul,
reading.
even in his letters, I mean, he's talking about these covenants with Moses and Abraham and how we're supposed to think about those things. It's all a reference to these stories.
Yeah.
So it's just helpful to think through what they are and why they're there.
And how as we said last week, from David to Jesus is roughly 1,000 years. They're still holding on to all these old covenants. And then you have Jesus roll into the scene and say, I'm going to give you a new covenant.
Yeah.
That's worth exploring. And I think,
Right.
we'll
And it's
get
easy
into
for
that.
us to look and go, oh, sure you are. But for them, it's radical, it's wild. It's thousands of years of these covenants that they're looking towards and hoping for.
So really only 6 big covenants in all of Scripture?
Yeah.
Cool.
And we're through
Shame.
5.
Yeah. This is going to be a long way. Till
Yeah,
we
it's
got
June.
a lot of pages to get
Yeah.
to that 6th one.
And
But it's
listen,
amazing how it
Yeah.
all works out.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I know we're only reading a chapter a day, but in my experience, I've said a lot, reading through the Bible with my small group year after year after year, when you get to the summer and you get to this part, it's hard.
Yeah.
It can feel like, gosh, what am I supposed to get out of this? Just take this word of encouragement, stick with it.
Yeah.
It's worth pushing through the summer, because when you get to the New Testament, you will see new things. The New Testament will have new life to it because of what you've read in the Old.
Yeah. And it's good to know this is the end of another bookmark.
That's right.
We're
Halfway through the year.
Halfway
halfway through the
through.
year.
Yeah.
You did it, Ted.
God. Don't remind me. Sorry. Yeah. Well, you talk, it gets to this point in the summer. I'm definitely feeling it.
Yeah.
This was one where I'm like, oh my God, what are we even going to talk about? Like,
Well, and part of this too, for me at least, is every week doesn't have to be a revelation.
yeah.
So there is goodness, especially looking forward with perspective about where we are and reading through the history and the stories. It's okay if every week you're not like, God spoke to me in this new way. And it's just good to know the story and to keep working through it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But in this context for us, it's like, what the heck are we going to talk about? So I'm glad we talked about these covenants and where we're at. I think that's helpful. So, if y'all are ready to be done, we can. I'm just kidding.
That's the end of this
I'm
episode.
just kidding. Yeah.
No, we gotta talk
no.
about how Absalom gets killed.
Okay.
It's exciting.
It is.
Well, it's a little weird because I think, that was one thing that I had to go back and read a couple times because I'm like, okay, he's like on this horse. He gets stuck in this tree, but the horse runs out from under him. It's like, well, horses aren't that big, so you're not that high up in the tree. Like,
well, he's hanging there.
I know, so let go and then run away.
No, his head's
His
stuck.
hair is his
hair?
thick, beautiful hair.
Oh man,
That's why when they describe him, they talk
Okay.
about his hair earlier.
yeah, I
He
got
has
stuck with the whole
long,
it's not like
thick-
he's riding a horse, gets stuck in the tree, and it's like, why didn't you just let go or like,
Yeah, no, he's wedged there, likely injured,
Yeah.
suffering, can't get unstuck. And so they walk up to him and he's just hanging there.
yeah,
We've talked about this anytime because usually in scripture, you don't see a lot of physical descriptions of people. But when you do, it matters.
Yeah.
And they talked about him. He's handsome and he has this heavy long hair. And then it ends up being his demise in battle.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you read a
Yeah.
description, think back on in
why?
Judges, Eglon, the very fat king, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That matters for the story. Bathsheba, she wasn't just bathing on the roof; she was very beautiful.
yeah.
You have these descriptions for a reason. It's setting you up for something.
Yeah.
So
And he's a little vain, right? We also know he's
yeah.
a little vain. He's a little
No blemish
maybe
from head to
narcissistic.
toe?
That's right.
Yeah.
So he is also, he's David's son, and we see David's sins playing out with his children, but you also still are seeing some of Saul's stuff, like in all these kings that are not going to be the king. So he's handsome, right? The people end up liking him because he looks good.
He's tall.
But he's
a
tall,
head
he's
above the rest.
handsome, he's
Yeah.
got thick hair, but he's not going to be the guy,
Yeah.
even though he's trying to be the guy.
Yeah.
Absalom's hair was so heavy, he had to cut it off once a year and
And weigh it, yeah.
We're going to weigh it because it's so heavy.
I think another thing that plays out in these chapters this week is David doesn't want to harm his son. And then he's even rebuked by Joab for all of these people have been fighting for you, and they see now that you prefer your son over their own lives. Like, that is not a good thing for the king to do. So it's interesting to just see all the dynamics at play, because he doesn't want harm to come to his son, even though his son's trying to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just like he mourned Saul, he mourns his son who tries to kill him and take over. So you see David's heart, but also he's not being a wise and good king at this point.
Yeah, which isn't a new characteristic. I mean, even all the those interactions with Saul, I'm feeling like, dude, I'm not going to go against what. Who am I to get in the way of God's anointed? Yeah.
So Absalom is killed.
Yeah.
Even though David said, don't harm my son, don't do it, they were like, he's right there, absolutely. Because otherwise he's going to kill David. It's not going to stop.
Yeah. And this is still David, he's on the run during this point. He's still not in Jerusalem. Probably not where the king's supposed to be, or maybe this is where the king's supposed to be.
But then he returns and he pardons all of his enemies, which is wild how some of that takes place. So remember the guy last week who was shouting curses and insults and even throwing rocks at him? That guy gets pardoned. And they're like, David, shouldn't you kill him now that you're back in power? Or Mephibosheth, who...
Saul's son?
Yeah, Saul's son. And
Jonathan's son.
Jonathan's son, Saul's grandson, who, at least in last week's reading, it seems as though his servant Ziba characterized him as, opportunistic.
Yeah.
Well, now that David's gone, maybe this is my chance.
Yeah, I'm going to get everything that Saul had.
Yeah.
Yep. David pardons him. He's just like, all right, we're gonna let all that go.
Is it good or bad?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I really don't.
Him pardoning everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like, merciful king. It's example of like God's character and like radical forgiveness and upside down kingdom glimpses. Like, it's not what everybody thinks it should be. And so, I think
in that respect, it's a really great thing. But also to be a strong and wise ruler, you don't want to pardon your son that's trying to kill you. I know he was killed, but that's what Joab was trying to say. Like, dude, this is not good for people to see you in this way.
Yeah, it's glimpses of the upside down kingdom,
maybe,
bro.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's just what as I see that, read that, I mean,
I think there's an indecisiveness to David at this point too. Yeah. He's a vulnerable, weakened king. And so I think maybe it's not necessarily black or white. It's that he's vulnerable. He isn't a strong king anymore. It's not him who's out there in battle and everyone is against him and he's pardoning and you're not sure if it's because of his clean and pure heart or because he's weak now. So I think we're supposed to be, he's not the David that we saw a few chapters ago.
Yeah.
Something has changed here. And he's still David who is seeking after God, but he's not the same.
I think it's possible he's even wrestling with, all of this happened, and the Lord said these would be my consequences. Yeah. Who am I to bring justice to people who are doing what the Lord said they were going to do?
Yeah.
The sword will not depart from your house. Yeah. Your sons are going to do exactly what you did, but worse.
Yeah. I think, though, like, when somebody goes through the things that he's gone through, when you've been humbled and you've repented, I mean, I think that changes you. So I think he does have a different perspective, a different eternal depth of his understanding of God's heart.
Yeah.
And so... I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's both. I think he does. I think you see it in the Psalms. I think you see it in the end of these chapters. He knows who God is. He recognizes who he is and his part in the problems, but he also isn't quite who he was when he was fighting Goliath and not harming Saul. Yeah. It's different.
It was interesting in these last chapters. Speaking of Goliath, we hear where is it? Where he talks about
the Philistines.
The Philistines, where he's fighting it's like
descendants of the giants.
There's still more giants around that he's got to like.
Some guy with 6 fingers and toes on each
6 fingers, 6
hand and
toes.
foot.
24. 24.
6666.
Yeah. Yeah. That was in 21, by the way, the end of 21 there, where he's...
If you go back to 20, you start to see now some consequences. There's a fracturing in Israel. The rebellion of Sheba is just, you have people who are now challenging David's kingship, and it's a whole thing. It's really just sets you up for what's to come in 1 Kings.
Yeah. It's interesting that, like, people, they knew that David was anointed as God's chosen king, like that people are like they're trying to rise up and go against, like, they know they're God's people still at this point. It's like, why do they want a king that's not God's chosen king?
Yeah, but not everyone
Knows
really
that
knows
intimately.
or even cares
Yeah.
necessarily.
Maybe he's claiming he was God's anointed one. It's a nation now. It's not a family.
Yeah, but you go back,
So you
like
go with
Saul,
Jacob, Esau.
Saul killed 10, David killed 10. Like, clearly,
Yeah.
like, David is, like,
But not anymore.
that's true.
Not anymore. He's weakened and vulnerable.
So who is it?
So
maybe God has a new anointed one like he
Like
did
what
after
happened
Saul.
with Saul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is just a different time and place.
Yeah.
A large territory with lots and lots of people without ways to be connected like you and I. Like,
Yeah.
they're not hearing the news quickly. It's just as things spread.
Who's protecting me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Who is killing the Philistines? Who is in charge? That's what they want. It's the same thing really with the gods. We talk about idolatry. It's who is going to protect us and keep us safe.
Yeah.
In 21, David avenges the Gibeonites, and that is a wild
That is wild.
story. I don't even have a way to understand that in my own mind.
Well, that all stems from the time with Saul,
That's right.
Yeah.
But why David feels like he's got to do that and then allow them to hang some of Saul's descendants, which we thought were maybe all gone anyway, and it was just Mephibosheth, but now we learn there's
Yeah.
others. So now imagine you're a person who, at least in this situation, is innocent from what your grandfather did or what the current king is doing, and you just get picked up and hung because of the family you belong to.
Yeah.
No power.
Yeah, that's wild. And then we get to ultimately this.
And you see these wars whenever David's there but not doing great. He's not the guy who kills Goliath. He's not the guy he's there but he's weakened.
Yeah, he's weakened.
Yeah. But they still win.
They still win. But they tell him,
That's
like,
right.
hey, you stay back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll handle this.
That's right.
Yeah. We don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
They're risk averse. They don't need him there. Well, ever since before the Bathsheba incident where David sent out he wasn't.
He stayed back on his own.
Yeah. So they'd already been doing it kind of without him.
Yeah.
You've been fighting.
Yeah,
his
it's
battles.
just different stories than we were reading before.
Okay, so when we get to this end here, this song of deliverance, which, it's like, it reads like a psalm.
Yeah.
It's written like a psalm, kind of.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's definitely reads like a psalm. And it reads, so, again, we should look back at Hannah's song at the beginning of 1 Samuel. So this is sort of reiterating how Yahweh works with these people, what he's looking for, what it looks like to be obedient and fully surrendered to him. He exalts those who humble themselves, and he humbles those who try to exalt themselves. That's the story here. We saw it in Judges, we saw it here in even a bigger, more important way, and we'll see it throughout the rest of the story.
Yeah. I know last week I read from Luke 1, but you also in Luke 1 get Mary's song, which is very similar to Hannah's song, but she says, like, Lord, you have looked upon my humble estate and exalted me, and you scatter the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. You bring rich down to poor, and you elevate the poor, and like it's all the same themes that we see right there at the beginning of the story of Jesus. Even this last couple of weeks, I've seen new connections myself in the way 1st and 2nd Samuel are put together and how Luke starts his gospel.
Yeah.
It's cool how the narrative all connects.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
22, 26. With the merciful, you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man, you show yourself blameless. With the purified, you deal purely. With the crooked, you make yourself seem tortuous. You save a humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. I mean, it's just... That's how we're going to end these stories, and that's the point. That's the takeaway.
Anything else in there for you guys? The last...
It is interesting in the listing of David's mighty men. You have the 3 elite, and then you have the 30, and Uriah was listed in the 30.
Mm.
That's the wife of Bathsheba. Like... He makes an appearance.
Is he listed last?
No.
Uriah the Hittite, 37 in all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's the... Oh, yeah, Uriah the Hittite.
Verse 30.
I mean, that's...
Right. Just a little bit of a gut punch reminder, like, he was one of the mighty men, and you took from him and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, do you think there's intention that was the last one?
I think everything is intentional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well.
It's a reminder that he was a mighty man and that, God is using all things, but that's David's not perfect.
Yeah. It's rough.
It is rough. All right.
But again, we have this everlasting covenant, 23:5. For does not my house stand so with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and secure. I mean, that is this everlasting covenant with the house of David. So it's this reminder of his failures, of everything he's done but hasn't done perfectly. But God is faithful, and there's an everlasting covenant.
And so you think maybe at this point, like in what we've read, David's like, dude, it's not going to be me. It's clearly going to be someone else, and so he's just riding it out. Is what it kind of seems like. He's not really leading. He's just has more of this wise perspective now.
He's part of the story. He's not. He isn't. Turns out he's not going to be the climax of the story. I think that's a great observation and takeaway that maybe David realized. He has been humbled because he was exalting himself, and now he's he trusts in God's faithfulness. He knows there's an everlasting covenant, and he can say, God is faithful, and I'm a part of it, but I'm not the guy.
And even if you go back to last week, what chapter was it? In 12, just those few verses about Solomon that the Lord loved him.
Yep, verse 24.
So, I mean, maybe he knew.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to see that play out in 1 Kings when we get into that next week.
But just how much he knew that in the midst of all this, like his awareness that it's not going to be me.
I would say, again, you get to the end of a week like this and you wonder, what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to get? Like, I'm glad I read the Bible, but I kind of need a little something.
Kidding.
Yeah, man. Maybe read some Psalms and meditate on them. Let the Lord do some heart work in you, or pick a gospel and read through that alongside some of this. Any of the 4, you'll see new things. But
my problem is, I get done reading it and I'm like, I don't want to read
anything
anymore.
else.
It's like my first thought is not like, I should go turn to the Psalms or somewhere in the New Testament. Keep reading this. It's like, oh,
if
God,
you don't want to,
this chapter had 40 what verses? Oh God, can this please be done?
Well, I think we're halfway through, like we said, and so I think contemplating. Okay, if we're halfway through our story, and we have all of our covenants, and we're looking for the new covenant now, so we're going to see all of this work out. I mean, you also can just I think get on your knees and contemplate who Jesus is in light of all these stories, in light of every covenant, in light of every story, in light of every leader and man and woman. Who is Jesus connected with this? What does that mean for the story before we even get there? And what does that mean for our own hearts and our own failures and our own hope in God's promises, like David?
You can subscribe to receive additional resources to help you study the story of Scripture at clearcreekresources.org. We'll see you next week.